Hello, hello, everybody. Thank you for joining our webinar today. See everybody joining and coming into the room. So we'll give it a few minutes before we get started. If you want to let us know in the chat where you're dialing in from, that's always fun to see. I am in the Gaylord, Michigan office for TribalHub today. Yeah, Charlie, you're on the East Coast, right?
Yep, DC at the moment,
DC.
but soon
Okay.
to be Miami, actually. We're moving in a few weeks.
Oh,
Wait,
Yeah.
what? No way.
that's
Yeah. Try
exciting.
something new. The weather was
Congrats.
calling me, so I had to answer.
No problem. Huh.
Tim, where are you dialing in from?
I am actually dialing in from our Nutanix offices in the DC area.
Oh, so you're both in DC. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Isaac, I'm assuming you're in Oklahoma?
No, Cherokee, North Carolina.
Oh, North Carolina. That's right.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. Cool. So we kind of have some Southeast folks here today, which is great. Good to see.
North Carolinian over here.
Okay. So we're kind of all over. I love that. That's one thing I loved the most about webinars, like people from all over the place. So
Yeah.
well, why don't we go ahead and get started? For everyone on the call, hello. If I don't know you, my name is Michelle. I'm part of the marketing team here, and you are here today for our webinar with Nutanix and the Cherokee Nation, migrating from the Broadcom Bogeyman, Cherokee Indian Hospital Authority's modernization journey. So great conversation. I love that this is going to be kind of a town hall meeting where we're really going to be able to get into the conversation and learn and ask questions. And I just love that you guys put this together to be able, one-on-one talk through what actually happened and how the journey actually started, how it went, and where it's at now. So Nutanix team here today, Charlie and Tim, they are TribalHub associate members. So thank you guys very much. And you will both be at TribalNet, I think, right, in September in Dallas. So,
I will. Tim is not cool enough to go, though.
oh,
That's
dang
that's
it.
that's a fact. Yeah, that is a fact.
Well, we're really looking forward to it, so can't wait to see at least Charlie there for sure. So,
Yeah. You
for
got the good one
everyone on the
anyways.
call, if you could please use the chat if you do have any questions, we will be monitoring that to make sure that Isaac, Tim, and Charlie can answer those questions for you today. If you don't want to put it in the chat, you can always use the Q&A. We will have a couple of polls that we'll put up throughout the presentation. And with that, I think I'm going to turn it over to you guys to start the webinar.
Awesome.
Awesome.
Thanks, Michelle. Yeah, hey everybody, welcome. We'll do kind of a quick round of intros just so you have background, and then we'll kind of get into this story with the Cherokee Hospital Indian Authority. I think it's a uh really great story on Broadcom and what drove decision making and all that kind of stuff. So just as a quick introduction, if you don't know, my name is Tim Fisher. I'm an advisory systems engineer here at Nutanix. I work on our Nutanix federal team across multiple different groups inside the U.S. federal market. So happy to be here. Happy to chat with you guys about this. Charlie, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, of course. Thanks, Tim. Looking forward to the conversation today with the team here. As you said, it's a great story. By way of introductions, Charlie Williamson, Federal Account Executive here at Nutanix. I support all of our tribal customers. So, as Michelle mentioned, super pumped to be able to connect with people out at TribalNet this year. We'll be interacting with the chat and also co-hosting with Tim today. And I'll toss it over to Shane to introduce the Cherokee Indian Hospital Authority team.
Yep. My name is Shane. I'm with the Cherokee Indian Hospital over here in Cherokee, North Carolina. I'm the system administrator. And we also have Mark Connaught, who is another system administrator here, and Isaac McGuire, which is our network administrator.
Awesome. Well, welcome, guys. Thank you. I know we've done a bunch of prep for this and chatted through a whole bunch of different things. So appreciate you guys kind of jumping in and chatting with us about this journey. So I think when we go through this and we kind of have talked through this a little bit, I think if we kind of set a little bit of background for everybody on you guys and your journey, you know, how long, obviously we're talking about VMware and moving away from VMware and Broadcom to Nutanix and our hypervisor AHV. So, you know, VMware's been around for a long time, but how were you guys experienced? How long have you guys been using VMware? How long have you been a customer of VMware's? How comfortable with you were you with VMware? Like, talk us through a little bit of your familiarity with the previous, Broadcom VMware stack.
Yeah, so we implemented it back in 2013, our vCenter. Used it all until 2026, till we went to Nutanix. So we were very comfortable with it. Myself and Shane have been here right at 7 years, and so we've kind of both, dealt with it from the beginning and got pretty comfortable with it. And it was a big change to go to Nutanix, but I'm liking it so far.
Well, first off, love to hear that.
Yeah.
That's great. And that's awesome. I mean, obviously we kind of discussed this. VMware's they've been around a long time. And if we were a group standing up a new infrastructure, for basically the last 20 years of my career, can't see it. There's a whiteboard behind me. If we were deciding what infrastructure we were going to stand up, the first thing we would put on the whiteboard is VMware as a virtualization stack. And then we would have all kinds of conversations around servers and storage and all kinds of stuff. And so it's been this critical central staple inside virtualization and inside infrastructure stacks for as long as I've had a career in IT, which is kind of longer than I tend to like to admit at this point with my age. But so we have this stack of VMware. You guys are super comfortable with it. Obviously, if you're comfortable with something, you're not going to change from it. So why the change? Why why going from Broadcom to Nutanix? What kind of issues were you having? Pain? Does it center around the Broadcom acquisition of VMware? Kind of talk us through, why the switch over? Why the change?
Yeah, I mean, it came down to mostly the financial impact, but also we started experiencing some issues with receiving support. We had to purchase the licensing twice to be able to get support from Dell on the hardware. And then when they killed that perpetual license, we knew that going forward, we'd be paying a lot more, and they couldn't ever give us like a hey, here out 6 months out, this is what your renewal is going to be. It was like, no, we don't do that. We wait until, close to the deadline. And so that kind of pushed us towards looking for something else.
That's great. I mean, not great for you guys, but obviously, like this changeover in the Broadcom side of the house after the acquisition of VMware has been kind of a this sort of hurdle that everybody is kind of navigating and trying to figure out how to get around this. And we've heard this a lot from our customers of Broadcom coming in and saying, hey, there's here's your renewal, and it's a 1 year renewal, and that doesn't provide a ton of security for a lot of organizations that they want to potentially purchase 2, 3, 4, 5 years up front to kind of give them that stability in their sports stack. So obviously making a change is a risk. Like, how are you guys kind of thinking about this maybe from a long-term standpoint? Like, we've been a long-term VMware customer. There's some risk moving to Nutanix. What were sort of some other kind of key factors or maybe some other decisions that you guys had to go through to weigh that risk of going with Nutanix? Because it is a risk.
Well, there just wasn't any long-term deals being made by Broadcom. Like, we weren't able to do any like 3 year, deal with them. It was just, hey, we're taking this 1 year at a time. We don't know what the future holds. So it was kind of that like risk of, well, how far much is this going to shoot up in price in 1 year? We were already seeing some of the costs in hardware going up. We knew that our Dell servers weren't going to, last forever, so we'd have to get new hardware for them. And then when it came to the licensing, yeah, without anything kind of to shore us up for a 3 year, process, we just didn't feel comfortable with, moving forward with them. Sure.
Yeah, it's been kind of the untold section of this. Sorry, Charlie. This it's been kind of the untold section that we keep hearing from our customers about is VMware is so central to most people's IT stack and IT infrastructure, and this level of unknown that a lot of customers are facing with pricing challenges and no long-term commitments, and switching from maybe just ESXi over to a VCF bundle. All of that provides uncertainty, and having that much uncertainty around the core central pillar of most people's infrastructure is not great, and we continue to hear that. Charlie, would you wanted to jump in?
Yeah, no, and I think that we're hearing that a lot from different tribal customers. It's interesting hearing that you guys were only able to do 1 year at a time because we're actually hearing it's funny. Sometimes we hear the opposite, right? We hear, oh, they're forcing us into a 3 year or 5 year commitment, but we're not sure that we want to continue on long term with them as a partner. So I think sort of the erraticism and unpredictability of what's happening right now out in the space has got others like yourselves looking at alternatives and seeing what else is out there. Was there? So we've talked a little bit about sort of the difficulty financially. Were there other concerns with the Broadcom acquisition? Did you guys have issues with support, or were there other areas that were definitely a concern for you as well?
Yeah, we had issues with support. I know that when it came to trying to get support on the hardware, we were down for a host for like 6 months because Dell was saying that we had to have the new licensing, but we had already purchased the licensing. And then it was just, with Broadcom themselves, we just weren't getting the response that we felt like we needed.
Hmm. Yeah, 6 months to be without a host is quite a while. I got to imagine that had pretty adverse impact on you guys.
Oh yeah, it was not, if we would have lost another host, we would have lost a lot of VMs would have went down.
And that's tough too because you guys are a hospital, right? You're supporting all
Yeah,
these critical workloads.
correct. We would have had to go down to, hey, here the VMs that are prioritized have to be on, everything else has to be off.
Right. And yeah, that's not an easy conversation to have internally too with business stakeholders. I'm
No, no.
Yep.
Never great to talk about what part of your infrastructure can be online and what part of it can't be online for sure.
So would you say it was the combination of all of these things that led you to this moment of, hey, we definitely need to make a change, or was there one in particular moment that trumped above all where you thought, okay, we have to evaluate all our alternatives out in the market?
It was really just a combination. Um, I'd say the financial aspect weighed heavier on us, but the combination with the support. I mean, we if we were forking over money and getting this great product, great support for the product, and something that we were comfortable with, we might have paid for it. But also that combination of just having bad support, not really knowing how the hardware stuff was going to go, it just made us feel like we needed to look in the market for something else.
Yep. No, it completely makes sense. And I think that's very common to hear out in the space from a lot of our tribal customers who are going through the same thought process today. Um, Now, it's interesting too, because while there's unpredictability on the Broadcom side, there's also the unpredictability of change, right? I'm my wife all the time talking about, hey, he's a man of routine. He hates to, change his, whatever he's doing in his day. So, for you guys, what were some of those conversations like internally? Because I think that, when people are debating a big change and they've used VMware for over a decade, they're often feeling, gee, I don't know what my life is going to look like on the other side. So, could you almost talk to a little bit of, what were some of those conversations like internally around the uncertainty of change, and how were you guys able to give yourself the confidence that you could change and it wouldn't impact the business?
Yeah, I think that it was the internal conversations about change was, we work in IT, we know things are gonna change, constantly. Always having to keep up with the newest and the latest. So it wasn't so much that we didn't think that we were capable of, making this big change. It was just hey, let's make sure that we have, the right resources to back us. Let's make sure that we have the right vendors we're working with. Um, you know, Make sure that we get the proper training, to be able to hit this full force and actually understand it and not just, hey, here's this new product, we're just going to set it in and hope for the best.
Yep. No, exactly.
That's great because it's interesting. We talk about this a lot with internally inside of Nutanix is, if you talk to me and you say, okay, Tim, who's Nutanix's biggest competitor? Most people outside would say, oh, it's clearly Broadcom and VMware. That's their biggest competitor. Some people may consider us a little bit more of a storage play, in which case they may compare us to a NetApp or a Dell EMC or something like that. Um, uh, but in reality, to me, our biggest competition is exactly, Isaac, what you've been describing. It's this fear of change. It's this, staying put and just going, well, we know this product like the back of our hands, so we're comfortable with it. We should just stay here, and you know maybe this will pass. Maybe the pricing won't be a big issue, or maybe we'll get through this support, and maybe it's just a bad time. And there's a lot of maybes in that statement that I just made. And I think what customers are starting to find is the move to a different platform, even a move to a different hypervisor, which is a big tall ask, is actually not as scary as you think it is. It might be a little bit easier than you think it is, and therefore that fear can kind of start to calm down. So let's kind of talk a little bit about that. For instance, how did you guys get into this migration? Like, how did you do the migration from what was that migration process like from VMware and Broadcom to Nutanix? Can you kind of start talking to us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So we used the Nutanix Move um, VM, and we had professional services come on site and help us with the migration. I think they had us helped us get a few of the VMs migrated, make sure that everything was working right, and then, you know, with the Windows servers, the migration process was pretty standard. It went, pretty easy. Some of the Linux stuff, we had some issues with migration, but it was mostly like it had to do with the hardware IDs. So a lot of times just the IP address would have to be put back in. But yeah, we had it like 95% of it migrated in the 90 days. And the stuff that we didn't have in the 90 days migrated was a little bit more on the networking side, where it was these appliances like Fortinac and ClearPass that maybe didn't have the regular support on Nutanix, or for instance, like with our Fortinac, we had to constantly engage with our vendor to go through how we're going to implement this on Nutanix. It was not just a simple migration, it was build out new servers, then they help us migrate the database over. We also had, we did run into a couple of the Aruba controllers not able to migrate over just because they didn't have support. So their recommendation was spin it up on Hyper-V, just for temporary purposes. And they're planning on eventually getting support on Nutanix, so we're looking out for that. And they've been running fine on Hyper-V, but we do want to get them over to Nutanix when that is available. And then another thing that we had going on was the our phone system. We were in the process of we needed to get them upgraded anyways. Our Avaya phone system, we had to jump up 2 levels to, I think it was 10.2 from 8.0, and it kind of worked out perfectly because they didn't support Nutanix on the 8.0 anyways. So 10.2 was, but it was also a little bit of a learning curve because it was a software only installation instead of like, hey, here's a package file that you just have to install for the VM. It was, hey, you need to prepare these Red Hat Enterprise Linux VMs and everything that needs to go along with it, with the networking and everything, and then we'll come in and install the application. So
I love this, and you know, we chatted about this on kind of our sort of prep calls or whatever, to give a little bit of insight into the background of these webinars. But I love hearing the whole stack of migrations, right? Like I don't I like hearing that there was, you know, we actually ran into a couple of issues, and oh, one of the pieces of software that we run is not certified on AHV, and so we had to work with the vendor and kind of talk through the vendor. And I think the big thing I like about that is you guys as customers. I think sometimes you underestimate your importance to the actual vendors, and them hearing this from the customer and saying, hey, we are making this change for a wide variety of reasons. We need you guys to get on this train with us, and figure out how to get Aruba, Aruba support into AHV, and Aruba networks going. No problem. We're working on that. We'll get there. We saw something very similar with Omnissa, which was Horizon, was a VMware company, only ran on ESXi. VMware spun that company out and sold them off, and the first thing they did was get AHV, our hypervisor support, built into the product so that they could then address a market that they had not been addressing. And they heard that loud and clear from their customers of, hey, we need this type of support. So I love hearing, you guys were super successful in the first 90 days getting nearly your entire infrastructure migrated over, but also there were hiccups, there were problems. Like, did you guys have to engage with Nutanix support during the migration process or during the move process? Did you run into anything that you had to call into Nutanix and say, hey, we're running into an issue here, can you guys help us?
I'm trying to think. I don't remember anything on the networking side. Uh, Shane, do you remember anything from your side having to reach out to Nutanix support?
No, no, everything just kind of went smooth on the Nutanix side. Like you said, the only support we actually had to get involved in was our application support for a few small things on the application side, but that was it.
Okay. Have you guys had to call into Nutanix support yet? Actually, for anything in general, even not even post migration.
Yes, actually, we've used Nutanix support quite a few times. We had an update go bad, um,
Mm-hmm.
patching to from one version to the other. It deleted a container that contained the Prism Central, and so we had to get support to help us rebuild Prism Central. But within like it took them 20 minutes to reach back out to me to get me the right person I needed, and within an hour we were fixed and back and up and running.
All right, love hearing that. Was nervous because did not ask that question in the prep. And rule number one is never ask a question you don't actually know the answer to already. And I completely broke that rule. but but no, good to hear that, because I think one of the things, you know, you guys talked about your support challenges with Broadcom and VMware and Dell to a certain extent, and so I like hearing that you guys have engaged with Nutanix support, and Nutanix support is there. I mean, we're obviously pretty well known for our support structure and all that kind of stuff, but it's definitely something I like to hear from our customers on, you know, engaging with support and feeling that support love. So I'm glad to hear that. Charlie, you wanna continue on with some more questions, maybe?
Yeah, definitely. So I mean, as you were, going through the initial onboarding, you did the migration, it sounds like relatively quickly. Um, how long did it take you guys to feel comfortable with Nutanix? And also, what have been some of the benefits that you've noticed compared to what you guys were using previously?
Yeah, I feel like we've gotten pretty comfortable pretty quickly with it. It probably like the first month was maybe a little bit of a learning curve, but I feel like that for the most part, just the application for it, the how it's just built out is fairly simple. Once you dive in there and kind of take a look at how everything's set up, uh, what we what it did also benefit on us for this whole migration process was it, we saw the need to improve our infrastructure. While we were getting these new cluster in, we went ahead and did a complete overhaul on our data closet. We had some HVAC issues in our main one here at the IT offices, so we decided to put this cluster up on the second floor of the hospital, and we were able to go ahead and get it all future proofed, for if we have any more cluster, additions. We went ahead and got new top of rack switches, completely rehauled all the racks and everything in there. It was something that was a long overdue project, but because we needed to do this project, we were able to, go ahead and move forward with that as well. And then also the easier disaster recovery build was a benefit for this. We're not fully, up and ready with it. We've got some stuff that we have to do the tests for the failover and stuff, but it's much more simpler from Nutanix side to be able to do the disaster recovery as a service.
So it almost seems like, simplified things a little bit from an operational standpoint, gave some opportunities for modernization both within your networking and DR perspective. Um, is that fair to say? Are there any other things too where you noticed, oh, hey, we're actually seeing some better performance here, or hey, this is actually a little bit easier than we did things before?
Yeah, the snapshot issues that we saw on VMware, you couldn't have snapshots, in there very long at all, or you'd start having performance issues. But with Nutanix, we haven't seen those issues pop up. So that's been a great benefit.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I've actually heard that one a few times with the snapshots piling up and degrading app performance.
Mhm.
So yeah, no, that's definitely interesting to hear.
Yeah, it's one of the things we tend to focus a lot on with customers on feature parity between ESXi and Nutanix and our hypervisor AHV. But snapshots being one of the few where we can actually talk about a huge positive benefit to how we do things versus sort of just kind of comparing a list of features and saying, yeah, the way you do things today is the same way you'll do things here. The interface may look a little differently or whatever, but that is definitely, Isaac, you hit the nail on the head. It's one of the few things we can talk through that is wildly different than the way VMware does their things. I do want to go back because we are getting a couple of questions in through the chat. So I want to do to bring a couple of that up. There was a question about support level and a question about migration timelines. And so I know you, Isaac, you mentioned Move, and we can kind of get into a little bit of the specifics. Move is just a VM that we give our customers to help migrate away from VMware. It's not a product we sell. It's just something that our customers get. Um, and it does make that migration from ESXi to AHV as a hypervisor a lot easier. You create a little migration plan. You can put as many VMs or as little VMs as you want into that migration plan, and then it starts kind of sucking data out of the ESXi environment and sticking it onto your new Nutanix environment, just sort of building these VMs. And what's great about that is, especially in a lot of industries, we if we're going to do a big change like this, I remember my time as a government contractor. If I wanted to do a software upgrade on one of my systems, I had to go to a engineering review board and a change control board, and I had to go through all of these hoops to get my upgrade approved. And this is an even bigger change than that. And so, from the moves perspective, we'll just keep streaming data from your old system to the new Nutanix system, and then the cutover happens when you want it to happen. And we don't delete anything off of the old system. We leave everything powered off on the VMware system. We just sort of power everything back on after one little data sync on the Nutanix system. And in practical reality, what this actually means for our customers is our customers can cut over entire sites, hundreds of VMs, in about the span of about 45 minutes to an hour. It can be that simple for our customers to do that with some quick testing, and then we're off and running. So it can be super easy. And then we did get a question about support. And the one thing I think that changes our support from other companies is when you call into our support line, there's SLAs associated with things. But if you call into our support line, you'll get an engineer right away. You'll get what is effectively a tier 3 engineer. And if they can't fix your problem, they go to our engineering support. So that's how our support structure works. You don't get a tier 1 level engineer that kind of just takes your information. It's a tier 3 person right off the bat. So wanted to talk about those two questions. We did get them in the chat. So sorry, Charlie, back to you.
Oh, no. Thanks for hitting on that, Tim. So Isaac, I think also, I want to go back a little bit to talk about, what was the, branching off of support, that's important for an organization, especially when they are considering migrating off a platform they've used for a long time. They want to, understand that they're going to be supported with that new implementation. What was it like from the professional services standpoint with working with Nutanix? How well do you feel like they equipped you to be able to complete that migration quickly?
Oh yeah, we love the professional services with Nutanix. They, came on site. We just grabbed a conference room for a couple days, and they walked us through everything, that we needed to set up for the move, for, how we needed to get our networking set up for the Prison Central VMs and the CVMs. It was great. I think we did at least 2 days worth with him on site, and then he was still available for us, you know, if we needed him for the next, I think the rest of the week, if we needed to spin up a call with him, he was available.
Love that. That's exactly what we love to hear. It's big for us to be able to support our customers. We understand the gravity of the change, and especially when we're thinking about, critical IT environments like hospitals or, tribal casinos out there, tribes, government, entities out there, right? It's very sensitive information. So, I mean, we definitely try and make sure that we're supporting you guys and that we're planning the migration out accordingly, right? So that we're not encountering any hiccups or any potential downtime, things like that. Awesome.
Yeah, perfect. I think Michelle, I think you can do that now. Just kind of jumping in there. Um, so so that brings up a real quick poll. We're gonna pop up there about you know what your interest is for those of you on the webinar on a VMware migration, and what are kind of some of the factors you're weighing here for sure. Um, so I can't remember like if we really have dove into this as of yet, Isaac, but like how we said the migration went well. Have you guys seen any maybe have you seen any benefits that you didn't anticipate from this one? We sometimes get this with customers like, oh, we migrated over from VMware into Nutanix, and now we're seeing this thing that we didn't even really think about. Like it's just part of Nutanix that we weren't really thinking about. Is there anything inside that you guys are looking at now and going, oh, maybe we can add this to our repertoire, or add this feature set, or anything like that? Anything you guys are kind of looking at? Same question to Shane and Mark. Obviously, you guys can jump in. Anything inside the platform there that you guys are looking at now to help? This question, by the
Um,
way, not part of our prep. So
yeah, yeah. No,
I'm throwing you a curveball.
I mean, I guess the only thing that I can think of that we really have started diving into is the ability to do the DR stuff within Nutanix. You know, being able to set up those RPOs and stuff directly with our DRAS service, and it's just been so smooth on getting all that set up.
Awesome. Love hearing that.
Great. No, that's definitely great. And can you speak to, I mean, I encounter, you know, wide variety of tribal organizations, some of which have disaster recovery today, some of which, have a version of it or a secondary site, and then others who are just don't have any disaster recovery in place today. What made disaster recovery for you all so important as an organization?
Well, when Hurricane Helene come through, that was a big, sign for us that we already had some, disaster recovery then, and it kind of got impacted because of Helene. And when because we had a direct route to our DR site, and it got washed out by the flooding. So it wasn't, we had to spin up, some VPN tunnels to them to get that connectivity back. But with the new DR that we're going with, it kind of showed us like, hey, maybe we need to have a DR site that's a little bit further away from our location because that site was still, just an hour away. So from a geolocation standpoint, it made us understand like, okay, well, we need to have, it a little bit further out. And it seems like with Nutanix, we can kind of, with this DR plan that we're going with, it can be spun up anywhere fairly simple.
That's great. No, great to hear that, and I think it's definitely an important topic. It's a hard one because you're essentially duplicating what you have, but you also you never you never like the idea of paying for insurance until you actually need to use it, right? So especially when you're running critical workloads at the hospital, right? So I think it's definitely an interesting topic, and we've definitely had a lot of people entertaining with us of how do we do disaster recovery a little bit more efficiently. How do we ensure we have the right separation where if we get hit with a natural disaster or a cyber event or some sort of occurrence that shuts the main data center down, how are we ensuring that we're prepared and ready?
Yeah, as a former storage guy slash backup administrator, the DR side and the backup side of the house always get a little neglect. Generally speaking, until something bad happens and we can't recover, and then all of a sudden there's some renewed focus in there. So I think it's great that you guys are already moving into the how do we make sure that we have a continuity of operations plan or a DR plan, or can we potentially, and there's a ton of a lot of the questions we're getting in that nowadays are around data sovereignty and where our data can be, and you guys have an even bigger probably responsibility around data because you've got medical data and PII and all of that kind of stuff. So lots of broad questions here on where you guys can host data and does it need to be on prem, and all of these kind of questions you can sit down and work through. But we're happy to be here and be a part of those conversations and say, hey, there's tons of different options out there for you guys on a DR front. There's an easy one of a Nutanix cluster somewhere else that we're shipping data to. There's potentially a cloud-based option where we can just send data to a cheap and deep S3 bucket or something like that. Like a lot of different questions and answers for you guys on that DR front. But always good to hear that we're already thinking about DR and making sure that we have DR in place. So let's talk a little bit. I know we got some pretty good time left. That's good. That's good. Um, let's talk about some of the other stuff. So okay, we're kind of through the migration process. We don't have to worry about Broadcom anymore. What about some future ideas? What are you guys looking at to the future for tech? Whether it's security and maybe microsegmentation, whether it's virtual desktops, whether it's I think I'd be struck by lightning if I didn't mention AI and in some form or fashion in every single topic I discuss. But what are you guys looking to now to say, hey, how do we do things? How can we do other things here? And what is the next phase for you guys?
Yeah, besides the focus on DR, we're looking at the virtual desktop environment, trying to make it secure with the differing access rights. When someone logs into it, they get that access that only they need to. but yeah, that's really the 2 points that we have going on right now in is DR and virtual desktop environment.
Excellent. Um, what do you guys use? Because like that virtual desktop, kind of arena is rife with all kinds of different players. And we've talked through some ways we can help, especially on the securing side and role based access and all kinds of different stuff that we've talked to that we don't necessarily have to bore everybody with. But like, what are you guys like? Do you guys have a provider right now for virtual desktops? Are you guys looking at different providers? How are you guys kind of thinking through this realm of virtual desktop? Because it's this wide river full of different things that I think can be confusing at times to people.
Yeah, we've got Scale. Is that right, Shane? Scale? And Parallels is what runs on the host. Scales is the host, and Parallels runs on top of it. And
Perfect.
we currently have probably like maybe 100 users that might, log in, just not all at the same time. We've got some providers and stuff that, come in and sign into it, and then we've got some billing people that work from home on it. You know, it's it's not a very broad environment right now, but that's kind of what we're looking at is like eventually maybe we'll go to a full environment where everyone has a thin client and just log into the VDI system.
I think that's fantastic because I think that's you described multiple different types of people logging into different types of machines. If you're a developer, if you're financials, you need maybe a Windows 11 desktop with maybe not a ton of resources to it. You're just going to go do your thing. You're going to log into the accounting app or do whatever you need to do. Whereas, hey, if I'm a developer or I'm a power user or whatever, I need beefier machines, et cetera, and not having those physical machines everywhere and having virtual instances that I can move data around to makes a ton of sense from my perspective. So love hearing that. Charlie, what else you got? My guess is you have a list of questions that we haven't even gotten to yet. So I'm gonna throw it back to you and see what else we got.
Yeah, sure. And I definitely want to try and make it interactive with the audience as well. So, I
Yeah.
mean, I'm sure we have some people out here right now who are facing the same challenge, right? They're deciding, should I stay? Should I go? Do I want to hang out with that Broadcom boogeyman or not, right? Um, so, what advice would you, Isaac and Shane, have for those who are considering a change off of their existing VMware infrastructure?
From my point of view on the networking side, like I was talking about with some of the issues that we ran into with the appliances, um, just making sure that I wish that I could go back and just got with my vendors earlier in the process because I did get a little bit more stressed towards that end when things weren't working right, weren't migrating how I'd like them to. So if I would have gone back, I'd talk with my vendors more, I'd engage them, trying to find out, okay, which ones of these appliances are supported by Nutanix, which ones aren't, and kind of just have a better game plan of, instead of trying to do, I think in that last 2 weeks, I was trying to get, I think, 8 VMs built and moved over for the Avaya stuff, while on top of trying to get the Fortinac appliances built. It was, a little bit stressful. So I wish that I could have gone back and, just planned that out a little better from the networking side.
No, definitely understandable and always good to engage, the whole ecosystem, right? To make sure that everything is going to migrate as smoothly as it can be. We definitely encourage that from our standpoint as well. We try and make it as easy as we can with Move, but we also, we want to make sure that we're planning with PS and the team to ensure that we have the most efficient path to be able to create that migration. It's awesome. Was there, can you speak a little bit also to the processes you were evaluating Nutanix? At what point in the process did you guys all realize that Nutanix was the right fit for you all?
Yeah, go ahead, Shane.
Yeah, one of one of the ways we evaluated quite a few different options. We looked at Scale, Verge.io, HP had their own solution, and of course, uh, Microsoft's and VMware's. We were looking at a bunch of different options. So some of the key factors that we looked at was we started talking to some of our software vendors. What are you guys? What's your future looking like? And a lot of our software vendors were making the switch themselves. Our current DR environment, uh, we had DartPoints as our current DR solution. They were making the change and they were no longer going to support VMware. They were going to be strictly Nutanix. And then we looked at the longevity of a solution. And by the longevity, it was if I were to retire or leave the company, how easily could they find a replacement with the current solution they had? And Nutanix just seemed like the easy go-to choice for that because it's been around forever. Everybody knows Nutanix, everyone knows VMware. No one's ever heard of these other smaller ones like Scale or Verge.io. It's harder to get people in on those, harder to train them. So that was like the big key things we were looking at when making that decision to move over.
Definitely. Yeah, no, and definitely that point that you mentioned about, hey, if I retire today or, I move to another organization, how easily can others pick up in my place, right? Is there pun intended tribal knowledge going on? Where we there's someone who knows the secret sauce of how to maintain the infrastructure, right? And it was interesting. We actually had the IT director of Yurok Tribe on a few months ago when we did the May View when we did a webinar with TribalHub last, and he was talking about that as well of how we could offload more tasks onto junior staff, or we felt like the newer recruits we were bringing in or new staff we were bringing in were we could get them trained up on the platform relatively quickly because of that experience out in the space. Um, it's interesting. What made you want to also go into the Nutanix direction versus like I know some people, they'll look at say like a Hyper-V or some other, smaller providers who are included in some other like licensing agreements, like for example, Azure.
Uh, that was pretty easy choice. Hyper-V is pretty neat. It's a good platform, but it can be a bit of a bear to work with. We have a Hyper-V cluster in one of our IHS maintained softwares, and we watch them struggle with it all the time, especially on the networking side of it. And so we were looking for ease of use, something that quick and easy to learn, and Nutanix checked the boxes over the others.
That's awesome. Yeah, no, great to hear that. And that's what we try and do, right? Is how do we make this walk up user friendly? How do we lessen the barriers of migration? Make it as and make it similar as what to you guys were used to. Coming over to the new platform, right? How do we simplify infrastructure operations? We talk a lot about invisible infrastructure. So the idea of how do we not spend as much time maintaining your VMs and your infrastructure and spend more time on higher order thinking. It sounds like that's you guys have got a little bit more time freed up where you're starting to now think about DRAS or disaster recovery. And then also VDI as well. So no, it's awesome, and we certainly really appreciate the partnership that you guys have entrusted within us.
Yeah, we've really,
We
oh,
yeah,
sorry.
go ahead, Isaac.
I was just gonna say, yeah, that we've really, enjoyed it with Nutanix. Everything's been so smooth, and I, I myself, I can't speak to vSphere as much as I have with Nutanix as just the network admin. It was kind of brought to me like hey, let's all try to learn Nutanix instead of just the sysadmins were the ones that learned the VMware side. So it was kind of all fresh, for me coming into Nutanix. And, you know, I think it's been really, really simplified on, understanding how the architecture works and, just the interfacing and everything just seems to be working great.
Love it. That's awesome.
I was going to jump in. We did get a question here, and Michelle, yeah, I say let's go for poll number two, and we did get a question from one of the attendees on hey, how does this compare basically to vSAN? How many nodes are required? And so I shot a note out via the chat, but just kind of want to cover this live for everybody else. Is yeah, our HCI product does definitely have a vSAN. I hate to say the vSAN equivalent because that means something different, but we do have vSAN, and in fact, vSAN changed from an OSA architecture to what they call an ESA architecture. That ESA architecture surprisingly mimics our file system and our software-defined storage architecture. It mimics us way more than it used to. But yeah, that's all built into our HCI product. We can now use external storage as well. So we can come in with a NetApp or a PowerStore or a Pure or an Everpure as a storage layer backend with compute layers, and just kind of bring in our hypervisor. That migration is actually super easy. And then on the node, like sort of resiliency of a Nutanix cluster, we tend to we can do one node clusters, two node clusters, three node clusters, all the way up to about 32 node clusters tends to be our maximum. And we tend to recommend a three node cluster at minimum. That means you can take at least one node down for sure, continue to run all of your applications, all of your workloads, and everything like that. So that way we're not degrading any kind of performance on that. So wanted to answer those two questions live real quick while we had a quick break. Okay, so we got about like 8 minutes left, I think. Is that right, Charlie?
Believe so. Yep.
All right. What other high level topics do we want to talk about? Do we want to open it up maybe for, I don't know if the participants can ask questions audio, or they can type them into us. But where do we want to go with the last 8 minutes? Make it a little more, even more interactive.
Yeah, I actually had a question.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, if you would want. Um, I guess this would be for Isaac and Shane, either one of you. What is the biggest lesson from this experience that you would want to share with the other leaders from tribes who are on the call today? Like, one thing you'd want them to take away from this conversation.
Uh, yeah, like Isaac said, I've been with the Cherokee Hospital for 7 years, but I worked for Duke LifePoint for 18. I've been working in VMware for a long time. I had my VCP, DCV. I'm super comfortable with VMware. It was it was nervous to move to something when you're so familiar with it. You have these high level certifications you spent so much time in. I was surprised how easy it was to pick up and run with. I'm already working on my first certification for it, and we've been in it, what, 3 months? And I'm already working on getting my first certification. I've just got to take my exam, which I'm probably going to take here in a couple weeks. And one of the things I personally would highly recommend is the TAM service. We picked up the TAM service when we got with Nutanix. For the first couple months, we were meeting every week. And every week I was like, hey, I've got some questions. Here, I'm seeing this. How do I do this? And that TAM service taught me so much so fast that now Like we had our weekly meeting today at 10 a.m. and it was a quick 5-minute meeting. I was like, no, I've got nothing at this point. We're good. And she was like, okay, yeah, check the health of your cluster. We'll meet next week. It's been a wonderful little service that helped me really pick it up and learn it fast and just fly through it.
Yeah, love to hear that, Shane. I'll definitely pass that feedback on to Amanda as well, who I know has been doing an awesome job helping you guys get started. And I think it's interesting too with that service. What's nice is that you get in the good habits, right? You learn your upgrade schedules. You know when you're supposed to upgrade, how to do it, how to maintain the platform, your day-to-day workflows, and so you just get in these good habits and you build that up, and it just makes it so much easier so that you're not running into situations where, oh no, we haven't done our upgrades in a long time. We're on unsupported software. This is going to be now more difficult, right? And so you don't fall behind, and it just makes the day-to-day operations so much easier. So really appreciate that sentiment for our team, and I'll definitely pass that along.
Yeah, and I'll just add to that as well. Just, you know, don't be afraid of change. Um, and the, if you can learn anything from my experience, just make sure you engage, you know, people early and often to, all your vendors and stuff to make sure that you're set up for success because, that's where most of my stress came from was just not engaging early enough and kind of, putting that off, trying to focus on the hardware aspects of getting our IT room set up completely with the new switching and everything, and not focusing on like, oh, well, I've got time for these VMs and these appliances and stuff, but just engage early and often, and you'll be fine.
Isaac is the Broadcom boogeyman's worst nightmare. He's not afraid to change. Do it.
That's right. That's right. Love to hear that.
That's awesome. Awesome. So, is there any other, interaction chat, questions from the chat at all? Things that the team would like to cover? Happy I know we're just coming up on time here, so happy to do with the time, whatever's best.
Yeah, I think Tim, you got almost all the questions that were in this chat, so I think we're good with those with those questions. I would just say if any of you guys have anything you want to wrap up with, like I know you guys, Charlie will be, some of the team will be at TribalNet, so if you're on the call and you're at TribalNet, make sure you stop by and see Charlie and the team and talk to them. But anything else, you guys are looking forward to chatting with tribes who are going to be in attendance at the conference?
Yeah, absolutely. No, we're going to be at TribalNet. We'll have a booth there. We also have a happy hour with Haiku, who's one of our backup partners on that Tuesday.
Mhm.
So come by our booth at some point. I'll definitely invite you to the Tuesday happy hour. And no, we look forward to chatting with the teams. Yeah, it should be a good time. TribalNet is always an amazing show. We look forward to it every year. It's a great opportunity to foster current connections, but also make new ones.
Mhm.
So super pumped about that too.
Awesome.
Yeah, I would say come with your questions. As Charlie mentioned, I'm not cool enough to be there. I believe those were his exact words. So I won't be there, but I highly encourage everybody to come with your questions as technical as possible for Charlie in particular.
Ah.
And come in and we do in all honesty, we love we do love interacting with everybody and sitting down and having those conversations. So do bring your questions and say, hey, I've got this issue, or hey, we're running into this thing. Do you guys have anything for that can help? We love sitting down and talking to everybody, all the tribes, and saying, hey, we do have something here. Here's how we solved that. Here's how this other tribe solved that problem with Nutanix. We've got enough of that. We can kind of give you examples of that. So would love to see everybody at TribalNet and Michelle and team. Thank you guys for always hosting us. I love doing these webinars, so thank you for always hosting us.
Yeah, super fun. Isaac and Shane, anything you wanted to share before we call it a day?
I'd just like to say thank you to Charlie. He's been with us every step of the way since the very beginning.
Hmm.
Uh, It's just,
Charlie.
it's been, like Isaac said, change can be scary. The team we got made this transition so smooth and great. And I can personally say I'm a happy customer of Nutanix. I'm glad we made the switch, and I thank you guys for helping us make that switch. And whatever any other tribe decides to do, I hope you find out what works best for y'all. But if you need any help, Charlie's got to talk to. He can definitely help get you in the right path.
You're melting me, Shane. That I really appreciate the kind words.
Ridiculous. Come on, Shane. This is terrible.
Awesome. Well, thank you everybody for being on the call today. Thank you, Charlie, Shane, Isaac, Tim. I appreciate you guys sharing your experience and being on this call. Thank you for everyone who attended. You will receive an email tomorrow with a link to the video recording. If you want to share it with anybody on your team who maybe didn't make it, that'd be wonderful. In the meantime, if you have any questions, you can always reach out to any of us here at TribalHub, and we will make sure to get you to the right person. So with that, have a great afternoon, everybody, and we'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Everyone.
Bye.
Bye.